Welcome to this place of worship. I want to share the gospel of freedom with you through the gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verses 10 through 17, we have just read. Today's gospel text is called Jesus' Healing on the Sabbath. Also, it is called Jesus Heals a Crippled Woman on the Sabbath. The theme of the gospel of freedom comes from the gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verse 12. Jesus looked at the woman who was bent over and was unable to stand up straight for 18 years. Jesus said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." There are three interpretations of the word free. Jesus said to woman, "You are free from your sickness. You are liberated from your illness. And you are released from your chronic sickness." As we share today's gospel lesson, we can apply the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and the how to us. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verse 10 explains the when and where. Now, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. The place is a synagogue. Jesus is teaching and preaching to the people in the synagogue. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verse 11, then describes the who. And just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. The Message Bible, by Eugene Peterson, translate Luke chapter 13, verse 11 like this. "There was a woman present, so twisted and bent over with arthritis that she couldn't even look up. She had been afflicted with this for 18 years. As I imagine this text, this woman may be someone's wife and someone's mother. Maybe she is alone for these 18 years. Also, as we reflect on this particular verse through the lens of our church, we have to realize that worship, this place of worship, this time of worship is for all people. The worship is allowed to all people. Also, this anonymous crippled woman came to worship on the Sabbath. I imagine that this woman was always in this place of worship on the Sabbath. We may have many excuses for why we cannot come to worship on Sundays, which are equivalent of the Sabbath. This woman who was in the synagogue on the Sabbath challenges us about how important worship truly is in our lives. In Psalm 84, verse 10, the David confesses like this. Let me paraphrase Psalm 84, verse 10. "Better is 1 hour in the place of worship than 1,000 elsewhere." The Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verse 12 and 13 talk about the who and how. It says, When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. We call the religion of Jesus Christ is the religion of grace. The reason the religion of Jesus Christ is the religion of grace is because Jesus comes to you and me first and give his grace to us. We didn't come to him first. Jesus comes to us first. The best news for the woman was to receive the healing that she had suffered from for 18 years. Now her back was strengthened. Let me tell you a true story about a Korean woman and a medical missionary in the 19th. So Rosetta Shawdu Hall was a medical missionary and educator. Pastor Johan, would you show the picture? Yeah. She came from Liberty, New York. She founded the Pyongyang School, now the capital of North Korea. The Pyongyang School was for the deaf and blind. Dr. Rosetta served Koreans for 44 years in Korea. She helped develop educational resources for disabled Koreans and implemented medical training for women. During her time at the school, there was a girl whose name was Jomdong. Jomdong was a nickname meaning a person who eats a lot. Jomdong lived a life like the woman who was bent for 18 years. Rosetta encouraged Jomdong to strengthen herself to see a vision. Rosetta led Jomdong through the gospel of Jesus Christ and helped Jomdong to dream to be used for God's purpose. Later, Jomdong changed her name, Esther. With the help of Rosetta, Esther came to the United States and studied today's Johns Hopkins University. She became the first female Korean doctor. After return to Korea, Esther healed thousands and thousands of Koreans and gave them freedom from their disease. She died on April 13, 1910, while she was treating others. In the spirit of Christ, you and I can be like Rosetta Hall, who made Jomdong an anonymous girl who lived like the woman with the crooked back, who could not see the upward. Esther then gave freedom and life to others. You and I can be like Rosetta and Esther. Luke chapter 13, verse 16 says, "And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on Sabbath day?" Here Jesus calls this woman a daughter of Abraham. In Jesus' time, the people thought that a personal disease and unhappy life was a punishment by God. However, Jesus calls this sick and crippled woman the daughter of Abraham. I pray that you and I can see the people through the eyes of Jesus. Through today's gospel lesson from Luke chapter 13, verse 10 to 17, we see the work of Jesus Christ and the work of Satan. The Luke chapter 13, verse 16 says, "And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" Luke uses word freedom to describe her liberation from Satan. The gospel of Jesus Christ is to give the power of freedom. Jesus Christ releases us and liberates us from all kinds of ties and bondages that Satan causes. The ultimate purpose of Satan is to make us dead and to kill us physically and spiritually. The ultimate purpose of Jesus Christ is to give us a life abundant. The Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 10 tells us about the ultimate purpose of Jesus and the purpose of Satan. The thief / Satan comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I, Jesus, came they may have life and have it abundantly. Luke chapter 13, verse 17 says, "When Jesus said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things being done by him." On the Sabbath in the synagogue, there are at least two kinds of people who worship there. One is opponent of Jesus, the other is the crowd. Today's sermon title I was also inspired by the Gospel of Freedom from Martin Luther King Jr. I find that the life theme of Martin Luther King Jr. is the freedom through the gospel of Jesus Christ. Martin Luther King Jr. asked the following question during the civil rights movement: "What kind of people worship here?" Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. thanked God for those noble souls who have broken loose from the paralyzing chains of conformity and joined him as active partners in the struggle for freedom. We as Christians have to challenge those who say that gospel of Jesus Christ has no real concern with social issues. We have to challenge that kind of comment. If I preach and teach and live just for citizenship in heaven and only for my own position in heaven, I would have to go with Karl Marx's criticism of religion. He said, religion is the opium of the people. Jesus does not make a strange distinction between body and soul, between the sacred and the secular. Jesus wants us to live in the two worlds at the same time. One is the world of time, our reality, our daily life. The other is the world of eternity we ultimately pursue. We as Bayside UMC have to continue to do Jesus' ministry for freedom and life. We have to challenge any kind of tie and bondage of Satan. Luke chapter 13, verse 17 concludes the controversy of the Sabbath like this. All his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things being done by him. On that Sabbath, the woman might have come to worship with her sadness. But when she left the place of worship, she came home rejoicing. Let us rethink about Sunday worship. Sunday is not only about keeping and resting in worship, but also remembering it is the day of healing and rejoicing. It is my prayer that you and I will return as freed, released, and liberated women and men by the gospel of freedom in Jesus Christ. With the help of the Holy Spirit, let us live for freedom and life. God bless you.